Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm one of only two men who can make doves cry.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Purple Rain?
Yeah.
Purple Rain came out in 1984 and was directed by Albert Magnoli, who you might remember as the director of Dark Planet?
Earth, 2638. 6 world wars. 6 billion dead. Dark Planet. Brace yourself for impact.
And Street Night?
Street Night. Jeff Speakman is the perfect weapon. A cop who does things his way.
So you can see it's quite a well-established director that Warner Brothers selected for this project.
Yeah.
Of course, this was Prince at maybe the height of his career.
What a build-up, I'd say.
I would say he'd already built up and was now incredibly well-established as one of the kings of pop and rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, of course, like every other starlet of this time, they wanted to make a movie. And so Prince got a team together with Warner Brothers, and Purple Rain would be that result. Of course, the film was made on a budget of only $7 million, yet would go on to gross more than $70 million on its opening.
Nice.
Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis for Purple Rain?
Well, the story follows Prince, who plays the Kid. The Kid is the lead singer of the Revolutions and plays in a small club with 2 other bands. One of the bands, led by Morris Day, wants the Kid to be thrown out of the club and so that he can get all the publicity and all the money to himself. The Kid's egotistical nature and his abusive family life threatens to destroy his band and his rise to stardom. But along comes a young girl and they strike up a relationship where the Kid has to decide if he wants to just follow his own rules or look to help other people around him.
So, evidently, this is a musical, and you are going to be presented with pretty much the greatest hits of Prince up until this point throughout the film. This is a film designed only to elevate the status of Prince, because with the result of him now dominating the radio, now he can dominate theaters, and then afterwards he can dominate the home VHS market as well as take over MTV. This was a launching platform just to make sure that everyone was well aware of who Prince was. And he was pretty much a heartthrob for everyone at the time, especially when, you know, he wears these elaborate outfits and very provocative lyrics in his words, in his songs. It does make him a standout character.
But at the same time, I mean, I got a massive 80s kind of flashback with this movie. I mean, like I said, that whole opening montage of Prince on stage, the music playing, you've got people with big hair and makeup eyes and one-gloved hands and things like that. But I didn't feel like this was just Prince. You know, I felt like, look, this is the 80s. And this was the time that obviously Prince was coming out. So if he had only started coming out during the 90s, he'd probably have been a lot different. Obviously, with the passing of Prince this year, and the fact that this guy had such a crazy lifestyle, you know, he started off as one thing, then he would become the artist formerly known as. And I remember, actually, the first time I ever heard him was in 1989 or 1990 when I first watched Batman, and his name was splashed all over the soundtrack. And
he did the entire soundtrack for the film, I think under duress of his contract with Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Who were pretty much using him as much as possible before his contract would expire.
Yeah, but I get another with this film. I get a Moonwalker kind of feel to it. You know, it's like, yes, here's your big musical star. We're going to thrust them out into the screen, and they're going to literally be in every sequence. But the difference with this film, to say Moonwalker, is that it does have a bit of a biopic kind of reality grounding.
Well, the film is very loosely based on the real life story of Prince, as much as Prince was willing to share anyway. And so the meat of the story is really Prince and Apollonia's sort of early relationship and Prince dealing with the horrors of his home life whilst competing with these other band members in order to secure a spot in this theatre.
Yeah.
And it's a very tried and tested story formula. It's nothing new. And the way it's presented here is really, really campy, because none of the actors in this film are trained actors. I think there were only 2 or 3 actual trained actors in the film. I think both of them were Prince's parents, and of course the actress playing Apollonia. The rest were all pretty much playing themselves.
Yeah, they're just musicians. But I mean, while I was watching this for the review, I was sat there thinking, yeah, okay, this is a tried and tested story. You know, he's the kid is going to be at this point where he thinks he's so good and everybody loves his stuff, but then he's going to take a dramatic fall, and then he's going to pull himself back up again towards the end and, you know, be the big hero. We know that now. Back in 1984, that's the kind of mindset I put myself in. There would be a lot of Prince fans rushing to the cinema to obviously see him on stage and hear this music, because this is probably the closest you could get unless you bought the tickets to go see him live. As an actor, yeah, I'll agree. You know, Prince, not the greatest actor in the world. He does have this weird look on his face the first time he sees Apollonia, and I'm just like, what? Has somebody farted? But as a musician, you know, outstanding. When he performs on stage, he could probably outperform any actor nowadays who tries to pretend to be a musician.
Absolutely. I mean, we get that number right at the beginning of the film. You're like, yeah, okay, you know, it's gone on long enough. And so when we get one of these interactions where he goes outside to his motorcycle, and I think the barmaid is out there.
Yeah.
And there's this really stilted sequence of dialogue where she explains to him that one of the other band members has given her a sheet of music or lyrics to pass on to him. And just the delivery of these lines of dialogue just make it feel like a student-made production. It just makes it feel really, really amateur.
It's a song Lisa and Wendy wrote.
Why didn't they give it to me themselves?
Well, I liked it and I wanted to listen to it. They told me to give it to you when I was done.
He wasn't doing his best, but it came across with his egotistical nature. You know, he's just like, oh, why didn't they give me the tape? And you're just like, because you're a dick.
Well, that is exactly the point. That it didn't take long for me to soon realise that Prince, when he's on stage in this film, is majestic. Yet when he comes off stage, he is one of the biggest assholes ever portrayed in film. He is a sexist, condescending, smug, arrogant waste of space. And nobody in the film particularly likes him, except for Apollonia, which is just incredibly creepy. The way that these two interact with each other. The first time that she sees him, you know, he's just done this number and she's starstruck. She's like, that was a, you know, you can tell that she's impressed. And then Prince sort of walks past her and then kind of stands right behind her,
with those
awkwardly, with sunglasses on indoors. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're Prince, whatever.
It's the 80s, man.
It's the 80s. And she's, you know, and we're just like, she's watching the, you know, the next band perform. And we sit there for like a minute, just waiting for her to respond or for Prince to say something. And as soon as she works up the courage to talk to him, he's disappeared. I'm like,
like a vampire.
Like, what?
I want some perfection.
And so a few moments later, she's on the back of his motorcycle and they're driving out to a lake. I'm just like, wow, that's moving pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, he's the big star. I mean, Apollonia is playing this girl who's come from New Orleans, I think it was, and she wants to be a star. So, you know, you always end up in that situation as you see somebody else being the big star and you're immediately starstruck by them. You're like, oh my God, they've got everything I want, everything I need, and they're just absolutely amazing. But you're like, well, they've got this ego. They think their songs are so great. And this is why obviously the band is starting to fracture, because they want some of the spotlight. And that's what I do like partially about this film, is as the film starts to progress, you know, the kid starts to take a downward spiral, and you start to find out that his father was a musician, but he flummoxed and failed. And so the kid is kind of following the same path. And you start to think to yourself, is he going to fail, or will he actually stop himself before he hits rock bottom?
I told you before, you're not packing them like you used to. Nobody digs your music but yourself. Fuck off! Yeah, okay. Just like your old man. Yeah, you got it. Tell me I'm wrong.
But if you think, if you, like Gary, think that Prince is a sexist pig, then you're going to really hate Morris Day and The Time.
Please welcome The Time.
Wanted to stay a while. See how it's done.
Damn! This guy is one insulting motherfucker. Yeah. I mean, he calls women bitches. You know, he treats people like his subordinates, like they're just his minions.
Oh,
and
Jerome!
He even has one, Jerome, who is just his impeccable lackey. He will do anything for him. But the two of them are borderline retarded.
Man, Jay from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back put it best. Morris Day is a smooth pimp who loves the pussy, and Jerome is his black man servant. And when I first saw Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I didn't understand it because I hadn't seen Purple Rain. Now I've seen Purple Rain, I'm like, yeah, that man can dance, that man can sing, and he's got all the good shit.
It's rare that I put my cards on the table when it comes to meeting young ladies, but I'm gonna make you love me.
The film vilifies him almost immediately when he's walking down the street with Jerome and they're discussing the new act and discussing how hot these bitches really are. And then one of his ex-bitches comes around the corner and starts yelling at him for not getting back to him. So he's just like, Jerome, deal with this bitch. Deal with this bitch. He picks her up and chucks her in the trash. He's just like, that happened in broad daylight. Like, no one stopped this.
Lord, such nastiness.
Okay, so I guess that's the villain.
Yeah, I started to really enjoy the film the more I got to see Morris Day, you know, because, you know, he is so flamboyant. He's probably not as excessive or egocentrical as Prince is. I'm not sure how to put it, but he's kind of fun. You know, it's kind of fun because you're just like, that's, you know, he's a musician. When they get up on stage and you've got 50,000 people screaming at you, you are the fucking dude.
It made me laugh so hard when he's up there doing his song and Jerome comes up with a mirror and holds him up a mirror so that he can check himself out whilst he's performing. I'm just like, God damn it, really? The line he uses, his pickup line on Apollonia when he comes over to her. The whole sequence where he's just like, yeah, I've got a brass waterbed. It's like, yeah. How exciting.
Excuse me, what did you say?
I wish you could see my home. It's so exciting. In my bedroom.
So the relationship with Prince and Apollonia sort of escalates and we get a really stilted softcore sex scene.
Oh man, that shit was fucked up. I didn't expect this. They're starting to get close. I mean, we've already had a breast shot from Apollonia when he gets her to jump in a lake. That was a bit weird. But we're talking about Purple Rain. A lot of the sequences are a bit weird. But they go back to his house, and I did think it was funny where he's like, we need to go to your place. And they've already set up that Apollonia lives in this rundown apartment, so she doesn't want to go back there. But Prince doesn't want to take her back to his place. So I'm like, well, where the fuck are you going to go? You know, and then they do go back to Prince's home, and he's like, oh, there's my parents. And the parents are actually getting on.
Which is a change, because usually we see the father just beating up his wife. That's pretty much all we get to see. So it's kind of like a change. We're actually seeing them together. Maybe it's under duress anyway, but then Prince lets off a line that it's a freak show. Yeah, because I suppose they, you know, if they drink, they're always together, and if they're sober, if the dad's sober, they don't. I'm not entirely sure, because the family sequences were really, really quite short, and I was just like, okay, you need to kind of elongate them
to balance out. You need the reality of the family life to balance out the craziness of the stage musical life, because that was a little bit too much. You know, the film's 75% music on stage and 25% reality and all that kind of stuff. But he takes Apollonia to the basement and he's like, yeah, this is my place. And it's like, oh, okay. And they start to kiss. And then all of a sudden Apollonia is there in just her knickers. And Prince is like 2 centimeters away from probably sticking his whole hand up there.
Damn.
Yeah.
But, you know, as attractive as Apollonia is, and she is smoking fine, this sequence just it doesn't feel natural. It just felt so awkward and so, I don't know, it didn't really seem like there was any chemistry between either of them. And so, as risque as it was,
Yeah.
it's just kind of felt flat. It didn't really do anything. The director did say in the commentary that they filmed 3 different sex scenes.
Yeah.
They filmed like a PG one,
Yeah.
a 12 rated one, and an R rated one. And I think it was the R rated one that ended up in the film anyway, which would, I think when the film came out, I'm not sure if it was classified as a PG or a 15, although years later the film has now been classified as a 15.
Yeah,
Mainly because of this sequence and a few other uses of the word fuck and bitch.
Yeah, yeah, fuck, shit, bitch, motherfucker, all that shit. Then, towards the end of the movie, language starts to come out, and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm never going to be showing this to any children. You can't really get away with that.
But just to add to the craziness of this relationship and the creep factor of it,
Yeah.
is that Prince brings her back to his place again later on, and he decides to play a piece of music to her. And it's the sound, I believe, of his ex-lover crying, played back in reverse to a piece of music, so that to him it sounds like laughing. And she kind of gets turned on by it.
Yeah, I thought it was the recording of him making love to somebody, and then he explains that, actually she's crying, I'm playing it in reverse, and I'm like, you are a bit weird, aren't you, Prince?
I've known serial killers in movies with less crazy creep traits than this.
So who's the lucky girl? Sounds like she's having a good time.
She's crying. It's backwards. Sort of makes me sad when I hear it. Sounds like she's laughing, doesn't it?
So what did you do to her?
I mean, we are talking about Purple Rain, you know. It's like you have either seen this film because you're a Prince fan and you love the 80s, or you've highly, highly avoided this film because of those exact same reasons. But for me, it's one of those films where you can put it up there with, say, like Walk the Line or Ray, you know, and like I said, Moonwalker. It's these films that musicians decide to make because they think they can act. And it's like, or like I said, with Walk the Line and Ray, it's like, okay, we need to get actors in to play these musicians. But with those 2 films, you take a biopic of somebody's life and you try to make it too dramatic. You try to make it too action orientated, and it just doesn't seem realistic. This one doesn't seem realistic unless he's on stage and he's performing, and then I'm like, yeah, you know, I can kind of get behind it now. Let's get rid of the kid. I want Morris Day to come back on. The film obviously was supposed to be a lot darker in places. They did have a female actress signed up, and then she dropped out, and then they sent it to somebody else, and she didn't want it, and then they finally set it on the actress Apollonia. But when the kid hits Apollonia, you're just like, oh damn, you know, we're seeing a lot of reflections of your father and your mother's life breaking into your flamboyant musical life. And then, whoa, his dad is starting to go a little bit crazy because his mum is cheating, or he thinks she's cheating, but she's not. And Prince comes home after trying to... I thought he was trying to rape Apollonia underneath that bridge.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of forced himself on her. She said no. And then he kind of forces himself on her. And she kind of rejects him a little bit. And he slaps her down to the ground.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, but, and he is, supposed to be undergoing this transformation where he realizes that, yeah, I am turning into my father, who also beats his wife.
Yeah.
And is also, and nobody likes him. Like father, like son. And you're just like, is he going to learn from this? Is he going to grow from this? Is the damage already done?
Well, it gets to the stage where the dad shoots himself in the fucking head. Misses. I mean, I don't know what kind of gun he was using that. He shoots himself in the head. And it's like, we'll just put a bandage around it. We got to rush into hospital.
Well, in the original screenplay for the film, the father was supposed to die in that suicide attempt.
Yeah.
The producers or the writers or the director even decided that it may be too harsh of an ending for the film, and so they decided to change it to where he survived the suicide attempt.
I kind of did like that little bit at the end of the movie where you see the clip of Prince in the hospital when the father's in the bed and you got the mother there, so you're just like, well, that's nice, they're starting to rebuild it. And after the dad is rushed to hospital, the kid finds all of his father's old musical notes and then gets the tape of that the girls have made from his band, and then obviously around that constructs Purple Rain, which I thought was a really good moment because the film's called Purple Rain, and so a lot of people might be mistaken that you're going to go into this film and it's just going to be fucking Purple Rain all the way through. Like I said, with Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix, Walk the Line was used too much in that film. Yes, they use a lot of other Johnny Cash songs, but Walk the Line was the main one. In this film,
they tease the Purple Rain music throughout.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the two girls are sort of learning and creating this song.
Yeah.
Which would eventually be the final performance.
And I did think that was quite nice because he stands up there and he says, I dedicate this to my father, and it was written by these two girls. So he's completely just let go of it, his own need to be the star.
It's its final admission of, well, I mean, he's sort of like, before it was, I write the music, I play all the instruments, I sing the song, I do everything. Without me, none of you are going to carry on. And he does say to the two girls at one point that no one's interested in their music.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, those two were in a lesbian relationship and continued to perform together as for 20 odd years, and yet they never really received any recognition as musicians as much as they did whilst they were working with Prince.
Yeah, it could have been worse. They could have been in Apollonia 6 and been singing Sex Shooter on stage in their underwear, which was a really, really bad scene. But, he does Purple Rain, and we get a whole sequence towards the end of like a musical concert, and then the movie's over, and I was just like, you know what? Yeah, I can go back to the 80s every now and again.
Well, the final piece to the film is, as you said, Purple Rain, and it is, I think it's like a 9 to 10 minute sequence of the film.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for the credits to start rolling up the screen as the song carried on and on and on. And it's captured really well because at first everyone's expecting this to be the final performance of the kid before this band is shooed out and never coming back. And you can see the crowd sort of warming up to this song, Purple Rain, obviously the first time they've ever heard it. And if it's the first time you've ever heard it watching the film, you're going to be spellstruck because the Purple Rain song is one of those songs that can mean a multitude of things. To some people, it means the end of the world. To other people, it means brand new beginnings and a fresh start. To some people, it's about the end of relationships and death. For others, it's at both ends. It's a spectrum of what that song can mean to you.
Yeah.
And that song ends problems. And with the culmination of nothing being resolved in this film, that song resolves all of the problems that the film built up without even having to go, that's the ending for that relationship, that's how this is going to go. That song just pretty much just ends it. It bookends the film, and everyone is in rapture, in applause with the performance of the song, of Prince. Even Billy, the guy who owns the establishment, is, at first he's unmoved, but towards the end he's just slowly nodding.
Yeah.
Like, this is the fucking number one.
Yeah.
So say what you will of Prince, whether you're a fan of his music or not, you know, there's a couple of songs in particular which are standout, especially in this film, because the majority of the film, when it's not on stage, is terrible. The acting is terrible. The camera work is terrible. Boom mics drop in and out. It's sloppy. Yet once they get back into that establishment and the lights are on and the music is playing, it's incredibly well captured. It is, you know, very professionally put together, and it's understandable why music videos became as huge as they did. But all of the drama outside is just a chore to get through. I have a fair few favourite scenes in the film. A lot of them are when people are just being assholes to each other, especially Morris and Prince, you know. But there's one particular sequence backstage when Prince is talking to the rest of his band and then to himself via ventriloquism. And you can clearly see that Prince isn't actually adding this voice. But maybe it's in his head. But anyway, the monkey in the cup pretty much just says that life sucks. And I was just like, that was how I was feeling at the time of watching the film.
You don't need those girls or their stupid music. All you need is me. Man, I don't know. Life's a bitch.
I guess one of my other favourite scenes in the film is towards the end of the film, where Apollonia sort of had enough of Prince's shit and decided that she's going to have some of Morris's shit instead. And so whilst they're drunkenly walking down a back alleyway, Prince turns up on his motorcycle, rides down and knocks Morris clear into the garbage, swings around like a superhero, yells at Apollonia, "Get on!" And you're like, and then he drive off.
Why did you enjoy that?
Because it was like, where did this action sequence come from? Like,
Motherfucker! You long hair faggot!
I've got a few favourite scenes. I was quite surprised. A lot of them are Morris and the time. I love the performance at the beginning where they do Jungle Love. You know, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back harkens back to that. I love the scene, like Gary said, where they're walking down the street and they throw the woman in a dumpster. I really like the sequence where Prince takes Apollonia out to the lake and he convinces her that she has to purify herself in a lake. And so she jumps in this one, and then he tells her that this is the wrong lake and rides off.
The thing is that after the twat rides off on his bike, yeah. I'm just kind of like, well, what a dick. Yeah. You know, she's soaking wet in a freezing cold lake and you drive off now. And then she kind of gets up and she's starting to get dressed. She falls over. And then after a moment, she's like, that was quite funny. She's laughing about it. I'm like, but then just to make it worse, when Prince gets back, he's like, all right, jump on. And then he pulls away a little bit. And I'm like,
you're a dick.
You asshole. And then when she finally gets on the bike, he's like, don't get my seat wet. Really? Really?
And my final favourite scene is where Morris and Jerome are trying to work out a password so that Jerome can tell Morris when Apollonia turns up at the club so Morris can flirt with her. And I was in fucking stitches. Though they may not be able to act, but the way Morris and Jerome kind of work together, this whole sequence, it was comedy gold.
Damn it, say the password.
What?
Say the password, onion head.
The password is what?
That's what I'm asking you.
It's the password.
The password is it?
The password is what?
It. You just said so.
The password isn't it. The password is...
What?
Got it.
Like what Gary says, some of the stuff outside of the musical performances is pretty crappy. But it weirdly balances. If it was all about the club, if it was all about the performances, you'd get sick and tired of this film really, really quickly. But with the outside relationships, it kind of cements to me that, look, you know, yeah, okay, they may live on stage and they're these great musicians, but they do have real lives to go back to. And, you know, most lives aren't perfect. And like the monkey says, life sucks.
I can only recommend this film to Prince fans if you're sort of curious about who Prince was and want a sort of biopic story. I guess this is, you know, one of the best ones to go to. There is a sequel to this film, a sort of an unofficial sequel,
Yeah.
which came out in 1990, which was then written and directed by Prince. He had total control over it, and it flopped really, really hard.
Yeah.
Considering he won Academy Awards for music for Purple Rain, and then won Razzie Awards for the follow-up Graffiti Bridge.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah, I think this story was told in Purple Rain. It's an interesting film to watch, just to watch again, sort of the 80s encapsulated in a film.
Yeah.
Because it very much just rings true to all of the best things about 80s films. The acting in it is terrible. The music in it is phenomenal. The drama in the film is hammy and camp, and some of the characters are downright creepy and offensive. But, there is a sort of quirky nature to the film that does kind of make it fun. And in some levels, you could enjoy this as a great, terrible film. And so I had my reservations about even wanting to watch the film. I can honestly say that I think that Prince is an icon, and I think what he did for the music industry he touched millions. He's touched the hearts and souls of billions, and will do so for generations to come. This film is, it's not a stain on his career, but it's not the shining moment either. I guess, just the performance of Purple Rain at the end, and just to say that, like 90% of all of the songs were recorded live whilst they were shooting the film.
Nice.
Just really goes to show the talent and creative energy that Prince had on stage. And sort of the film also captures some of the troubled lifestyle choices that he made, especially influenced by his father and his home life. And the scenes between him and his father, again, they're not the greatest, but they do give you some insight into perhaps Prince's background, because he was a very elusive and shy person when it actually came to talking to the cameras about what was going on in his life, dealing with the megastardom which started at the age of 19. So
wow.
Purple Rain is an interesting film because it captures some of these things. It's just not done to the at the highest level, but it's still enjoyable, Prince fan or not.
I recommend this film, like what Gary said. If you're a fan of the 80s, this, and you've never seen this, you need to watch this to relive it again. If you're a fan of Prince and you've never seen this, you have to. It's kind of part of his history. At the same time, this film is kind of cinematic history. Like you said, Prince was an icon. This film made fucking millions. It boosted his stardom up to be able to do the soundtrack for Batman, which I thought was freaking awesome. The artist formerly known as, and all of that kind of stuff. Fans of Prince would say that they went and watched him in concert and they were just blown away by his performances. I like I said, I feel that this film is slightly more enjoyable than Moonwalker and Walk the Line and Ray, which can kind of get a little bit over the top with the way that they're trying to make these people's lives seem more exciting than what they were. The balance of the relationships outside of the club, they're a bit of a chore to get through, but then at the same time it shows you, if you're a rising musical star, it'll show you that it's not all fucking rainbows and unicorns to get to where you want to be. It's actually quite a hardship. You've got to work for it. You've got to listen to your band. You've got to work with everybody. Relationships will falter. Some of them will strengthen. As a bonus, Morris Day and The Time are the fucking bomb. You have to see it just for Morris Day. If you're not a fan of Prince, watch Morris Day. He is a badass motherfucker.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Hey, wait a minute,
That ain't Lake Minnetonka.